So, Vince, let's dive into the pass game. Let's dive into the pass game matchup for Virginia Tech. This is the one that we've been kind of looking at recent weeks and saying, hey, this is the area where Notre Dame's going to be able to find some success. If they're going to win these games and have success, they're going to throw the football effectively. And they haven't really thrown the football effectively. And they're going against a Virginia Tech defense that this is kind of what they've been pretty good at this year so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the only team that's thrown the ball effectively on them from a number standpoint is Middle Tennessee State. Middle Tennessee threw for 283 on them.
Because they couldn't run the ball, so they were just chucking it all over the place.
Right.
Yeah.
And North Carolina went for 208. Sam Howell threw one touchdown, 3 picks.
And he looked rushed because of the front. Right. You know what I mean? Like he was running for his life most of the time, and actually turned it into a few nice little scrambles. But there was one time he threw a pick when he was being sacked. You know, he was being harassed by that front, and that's what worries me. That's what really – if Sam Howell, who I think we can all agree is probably better than anybody Notre Dame has on the roster, I'll just say it. If he is running for his life and is not able to connect on some stuff, that's what worries me about the pass game for Notre Dame.
So. Yeah, that's a legitimate concern. And, Virginia Tech had 6 sacks that game. They've had like 3 and 2 in the 2 games since. They haven't – or the 3 games since. They haven't had a similar performance, partly because teams have been smart enough to get the ball out quickly.
Exactly. And that's what Notre Dame has to do.
Right.
They have to get rid of the football.
West Virginia went 15 of 27 for 193 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a score, and one of their touchdowns was into double coverage. The guy made a great catch on a ball, and then Richmond went 13 of 23 for 77 yards. So, you look at this Virginia Tech team and the yards per attempt that they've allowed this season so far, 6.3, 7.1, 7.1, and 3.3 in every game. That's really good. That's a really quality number if you look at it. And so this has been a good pass defense so far, Vince. 5 interceptions in 4 games is a good number against the Notre Dame offense. Has thrown 3 interceptions the last 2 games, or just 2? Was it just the 2 the last game? I can't remember if they threw one against Wisconsin. Now that I've tried to block these last couple games out of my mind.
I don't think they did throw one against Wisconsin.
Because they have 5 on the season, right? And so they threw 2. Yeah, so they had 1 against Florida State. They've thrown 4. 1 against Florida State, 1 against Toledo, and then 2 against Cincinnati.
There you go.
So and then you look at Notre Dame's yards per attempt. The first 2 games, they were elite, 10.5 and 8.8. In the 3 games since, they've been 7.0, 6.5, and 5.6.
It's going the wrong direction.
Virginia Tech is a team that forces a lot of inefficiency in the pass game. Notre Dame's offense is a team that's had a lot of inefficiency in the pass game. Notre Dame's completion percentage the last 3 games, 46.9, 56.8, 50.0. The guy that most people think is going to be the savior of the offense went 9 of 22 throwing the football against Cincinnati's defense last week. And I'll make this statement. I think that Cincinnati probably has a slightly better front. I would argue that other than Ahmed Gardner, who's better than any corner Name's going to face by far, but as a whole unit, I would argue that that Virginia Tech to me is as good, if not better, than Virginia Tech in the secondary, other than Ahmed Gardner. Like if you take him out of the equation, he's better than Jermaine Waller, right? Okay. But you look at the safeties, the nickel, and the other corner in the pass game, where I think the Cincinnati kids are really good is in the run game. But in the pass game, I would say that the Virginia Tech kids are better, in my opinion. And Notre Dame had a hard time beating them. Now, the good news is there's no Ahmed Gardner. Jermaine Waller's a really good football player. He's not Ahmed Gardner. So I think the only guy that they're going to face all year that remotely resembles Ahmed Gardner is a kid that they're playing in practice every day, and that's Cam Hart.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So at least you don't have that. But this is a really good salty pass defense, Vince. That's been good in my opinion, just about especially against the Power 5 teams, but they were good against West Virginia. They were good against North Carolina.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, a lot of those hurries and things, yes, it had to do with the front of Virginia Tech, no question. But it also had to do with the fact that I think a lot of it were coverage situations. There was nowhere for Howell to go with the football. And that's part of the problem. So, I don't want Drew Pine, if he's the starter, to just sit back there and try to pick apart this defense, because I don't think that is going to end the way that they would like it to end. I think that they need to take advantage of his quick release, and they just need to be getting the ball out, whether it's look screens, tunnel screens, whether it's, quick slants, RPOs, you name it. And then you can stretch the field a little bit. I'm not saying don't do it at all. But I'm talking like 1-2 read type stuff, something that's quick so that he's not a sitting duck back there. Yes, he's more mobile than Jack Cohn. Sure. But this front is very athletic, and I don't want to get into a battle of, I hope Drew can outrun everybody, because that's not going to end well for Notre Dame either. So I really hope that the offensive game plan is, hey, let's take advantage of Drew's quick release. Let's get it out. Let's get it into the hands of the playmakers, and let's see what happens, because I think that they can make Virginia Tech miss in space. I have seen that, okay? But I have not seen them not be sticky as far as being in pass defense. So get the ball out. Let's make them miss in space. That would be my plan if I'm going up against this Virginia Tech defense.
Yeah. Here's some things I think Notre Dame should do, Vince, and I'm with you on that. I think a lot of the stuff I'm looking at is a lot like what you have. So I've written down, I've written RPOs down. Look, we saw it in 2018. Teams can be effective with RPOs, right? I have screens and jets, right? Those are things I like. That's a lot like what you're referring to, right? So quick screens and jets. I think that they need to do a lot of motion. I think that Virginia Tech is a team that if you do shifts and motions, you can kind of get them to be talking mid-sentence. And I like motions where you're motioning and then quickly snapping a ball at times, motioning, maybe bring them back across. Maybe if you're going to use 2 tight ends, shift them and then motion. I mean, there's some things you can do. I don't love the shifts and motions because I don't think Notre Dame does anything out of it that causes anyone to be concerned about it. They haven't run any jets out of it. They haven't done, nothing like that. When they go 12 personnel, especially when they've put Joe Alt in the game, teams know that they're 95% chance they're going to run it. So they don't really worry about the motion as much. But in your normal base offense, I do like the idea of doing things where you bring a guy down and stack them. Maybe you got Avery Davis in the slot and Braden Lindsey outside, and you got Avery on the line, and you have Braden off the line. You motion him in to where now you get into your bunch from a motion, whereas right now Notre Dame is running their tight bunch stuff out of just lining up a tight bunch. I think, to me, that plays in the defense's hands when that's really all you do, because we, as a defense, we can look at that and say, okay, we're going to play outside. We see everything that's going on. We're going to play outside. We're going to communicate to the safeties and the backers, hey, look, we're in bunch. We're protecting outside. Keep your eyes on the meshes, right? And they can pass them off. If you start off in a wider alignment and then you kind of motion to that, they don't have as much time to adjust the leverage advantage that they've now lost, right, on some of those things.
Right.
They don't have as much time for communication on some of those things. Maybe you put doubles into the boundary and you got Avery Davis lined up, tight in the slot, and you put motion across, or you can have him outside and you put Avery into the boundary, and then Avery comes in and you get into a bunch that way. So I mean, there's a lot of things they need to do to be creative. Look, here's the deal. You can't scheme your way into success right now with the way your offensive line is playing from the standpoint of a traditional offense, right? You're not going to be able to just drop back and run a bunch of really creative vertical stuff because you can't protect the quarterback.
Yep.
So you have to do things pre-snap that can create confusion with the defense, right? That's the difference between a college and an NFL defense. I mean, and in the NFL, they got way more time to prepare for all that stuff. Well, the reality is Virginia Tech hasn't seen any of that really right now. And so to me, I'm throwing different personnel groups at them. I'm throwing different alignments out of that. I'm putting Kyron Williams out in the slot.
Yes.
I'm putting Chris Tyree out in the slot. I'm doing things like we saw in the spring game, bring Chris Tyree in a motion, run your tight end off, have him run a pivot route, and you're isolated. Where's that been, right? That's there for the taking. I mean, like on Saturday, I would have loved to have seen that, where you run Ahmed Gardner off and you get Chris Tyree in space or Kyron Williams in the space against Darren Beavers. I like that matchup. They kept doing it from the backfield where, you got to run 4 yards to get to the line of scrimmage. That gives those linebackers at least that much of a head start to get there, where you can't really freeze them as you can on your traditional routes if you're in the slot. So I need to see some stuff like that, Vince. I need to see the being more creative with your running backs, being more creative with getting into the alignment you like from different ways, different personnel, different motions, different all those type of things. And then we need to see them come out and really attack them with levels concepts and flood concepts, the stacking them on top of each other. Those are areas where this defense can be vulnerable. Then that also sets up double moves. We're not seeing you're running option routes. You've been real successful with option routes for Michael Mayer. Well, he'll run 8 to 10 yards and just beat a guy on and out. So here's what you do. You do a nod, right? So essentially you're running off the outside guy, right? And you run off the backside outside guy. So you run 2 double verticals on the outside, which you do. Okay. And then you run Mayer on it, 8, and he just goes out like he's running the option. He nod and then go, right? He goes right to the middle of the field. We saw Chip Long run stuff like this, and it would get open. We need to see that with Michael Mayer. You have to have built-in counters to what is good for you, because this team is they're going to watch and say, man, Michael Mayer killed Cincinnati with those out cuts. He killed Florida State with those out-breaking routes, option routes, and corner routes. So bring something back off of that where you're given some nod and goes. Now, again, part of the issue is protection. That's why you do it with Michael Mayer, not an outside guy, because if Michael Mayer does that and you got pressure, it's easier to get that ball out over the middle of the field than it is to throw a slant and go way on the outside with a guy in your face, right? So there's some things that they can do in those alignments that I think would be effective. And so they're going to have to get the eye discipline for Virginia Tech off. They're going to have to create some They're going to have to force Virginia Tech to communicate a lot faster with tempo. That's another thing they need to do.
That's the word. I was waiting for it. That's what I want. I want tempo
with movement.
Yeah.
Because to me, a lot of shifting and motioning, even if you're snapping the ball at 10 seconds, but if you're snapping it as soon as your guy gets across, then you've kind of put them in a situation where, okay, who are they going to be? So if you bring Braden Lindsey on a jet motion and you got a reduced, you got Kevin Austin reduced to the field, for example, or Mayer or whatever, and you bang a corner route with that guy and just send Braden Lindsey on a straight bam arrow route outside, you're catching that sucker and that corner's in a bind. Are you going to go to run with Mayer, or are you going to run with the jet? And now Braden's got a full steam ahead. You can do like a little half roll with the quarterback. If you want to get out of the pocket, you can do like a little half sprint out with the quarterback. You get the running back blocking the edge, and bam, you got an ISO out there. You're stealing yards. You see teams do that all the time. You can't do that 15 times, but you can do that 2-3 times. That's the creativity we need to see. Tommy Rees is a really smart guy, but he thinks he's an NFL coach right now. Mm-hmm. And you're running NFL schemes right now, and they're really smart. They're really creative, but you don't have the quarterbacks for that right now because your quarterbacks are in their head. Your best quarterback, it's in his head. He's not really giving you anything right now, and you can't protect it. And you have a bunch of receivers who haven't been taught how to play the game all that effectively. You got one good route runner on your entire lineup right now, and it's a kid that was converted from quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. He's your reliable receiver right now.
Right.
I want to interject about tempo, because you're potentially bringing, let's say they bring in Drew Pine, and so he's your quarterback. So okay, we want to make him as successful as we possibly can. Well, going tempo, one thing it does is it reduces the playbook a little bit, right? Because you're going fast and there's some things that you want to do and you want to be able to get it going quickly, right? That's okay. And I'm not saying reduce the playbook as in it's going to be obvious what you're doing. And that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is it's quick. It gets guys in when you want them to be in. It gets guys moving, and then we run some motions and things off of that as well. I love tempo, and I think it puts Drew in the best possible situation to be successful, because he's going to get kids fired up. He's going to get them moving. He's going to get the ball out of his hands, and you're just going to go, and the defense is going to be on its heels.
I don't disagree with you. I'm going to say one other thing. If they start Jack Cohn, and right now I've actually heard conflicting information from my sources. I had one source tell me, hey, it's going to be Pine. I had another source last night reach out and say, hey, by the way, a little birdie told me that it's going to be Jack Cohn. I have no clue what they're going to do. Really, we'll find out today, because today's the first day of practice of the week. We're going to see.
Good point. You're right. They're going to be outside.
They didn't practice yesterday. If Jack Cohn's a starter, I think it's even more important to go tempo, because you got to get Jack out of his own head.
Yeah,
good call. And the best way to do that, and we kind of started to see this in the second series against Wisconsin. We saw this early against Cincinnati. See, I've already blocked that game out of my head, Vince.
Smart.
So disgusted by it.
It's on the floor of the barbershop for me.
Yeah, it is imperative that you just lessen his mental burden right now. And with Drew, I think it's about getting him into an early rhythm and getting them to bite down, so then Drew can, maybe hit him over the top and things like that with some quicker type of concepts. With Jack, it's more of it's all the things you said with Jack. It is true for Jack as well, right? Everything you said about Drew is because Drew and Jack are very similar passers.
They are.
Very similar.
I agree
passers.
With that.
You're not one thing we talked about this summer. You're not running a whole different package with Drew Pine than you are with Jack Cohn. It's going to be a similar offense. It's just you're hoping that Drew's specific ability to run that is more efficient, more effective. So the tempo thing, I'm with you on, no matter who the quarterback is. I think it's more imperative, however, if Jack is still your starter, or if Jack has to go in because Drew gets hurt. Because it's less thinking for the quarterback too. You're making a quick pre-decision, pre-snap, and you're just going. Here's where I'm going with the football. And you're going to get them in more because part of the thing about tempo is they can't make their communications and checks and adjustments and things like that. I'm coming out that first series and I'm going quick. I'm going to take a shot early. First 3 or 4 plays, I'm taking a shot, but it's going to be a shot out of the pocket. It's going to be sort of like a half. I'm going to do like a boot, not a naked, but a bootleg where I'm going to get somebody out there with them. Maybe get Jarrett Patterson on like a play action. Maybe run like the fake, the sweep action to the boundary, have Jarrett be the one to lead him out and do something like that and have him set up and throw a deep shot where he's getting out of the pocket. Because Virginia Tech's going to do what everybody else has done, and they're going to come right up the middle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's where Notre Dame's been vulnerable. So
that's what I would do.
Do a sprint out throwback or something. I mean, some shot where you're getting him out of the pocket and you can let let him wind up and get a shot out. Something like that I want to see early, or a shot where if you're getting cover one, then you just, hey, if you see first time you see cover one, you're throwing a deep ball to Braden Lindsey or Kevin Austin, right? Whoever has the better matchup.
Right.
So those are things that I would do, but I think tempo would be something that would be the thing that would allow Jack to kind of get out of his own head, throw screens early, right? Things where you expect pressure on the screen. You know what I mean? But you actually need to hit somebody. You don't just let them get free runs to the quarterback like they did on Saturday.
Yeah, you got to bump them. You can't just be like, okay, here you go.
Yeah, I'd run the mess out of RPOs in the first series, just things where he's reading it and pulling and throwing. Just things where it's just easier decisions. And then I feel like, and this is true for both quarterbacks. Both quarterbacks, if they can get into a nice early rhythm, I'm going to feel good about the offense.
Absolutely.
But I think it's especially true for Jack because his confidence is clearly shot, whereas Drew's is not.
Agreed.
I think Drew could go 0-11 and his confidence wouldn't get shot. I mean,
he's a very confident kid.
He just strikes me as that kind of kid, and that's agree. In case you're wondering, that's a compliment.
100% compliment. Yeah, no doubt.
You want a quarterback. It's like I was, so I started watching Ted Lasso this weekend while my
finally,
wife was on.
Well done.
The first season I really liked. The second season, I didn't like as much.
Yeah.
But the one it's comment about, be a goldfish. I never thought about that. What is it? The animal with the creature with the shortest attention span. It's a goldfish. It'll be a goldfish. You want your quarterbacks to be that way. You want your cornerbacks to be that way, right? Those two positions are more than any other. You got to have a short memory, right?
Yep.
And so that's just how Drew is. It's like, okay, I threw a pick last series. I don't give a crap. I'm going to go out there and we're going to score this time. That's just how he is. You need a quarterback to be that way.
Right. No doubt.
So that's what I would do pass game wise. Cause I do think, talent wise, Notre Dame has plenty of opportunities. I mean, Michael Mayer, if healthy, could have a big game this week. I think Braden Lindsey and Kevin Austin, I think Avery Davis is poised to have a really big week this week if used correctly and if the quarterbacks can have some time to throw. We need to see Kevin Austin have another bounce back after a brutal game like he had the last time he had a brutal game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's shown he can do that. He's shown he can bounce back, and now he's going to have to do that again. So that's where I'm at, Vince, with this matchup. It's advantage Virginia Tech for me because of this down here. These three areas down here. Notre Dame's inefficiency and right here, and then that right there. I'll say this. If Notre Dame can protect the quarterback in this game, if it can look more like it did in the second half, right? Okay. Again, I think there's reasons for it. I think if it can look like it did in the second half without them having to have 7 guys in blocking, then I think that then I would flip the advantage to Notre Dame. The reason I primarily am going with Virginia Tech is because I don't think Notre Dame can protect the quarterback without sacrificing their weapons.
Right.
And that's why quicks, screens, half rolls, bootlegs, things like that are important. It's like they ran a bootleg against Cincinnati on Saturday. Cincinnati played it. Like, well, throw that out. Like,
right.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Like they made a good play. Next time you may catch them when they're blitzing off the edge and you've got a big play. I mean, it's like there's no method to the madness of what Notre Dame. Like I've been a very high on Tommy Rees at times this season, but the last couple games it's almost like he's grasping at straws, and I can't blame him. I mean, you can get mad at him all you want, but I can't blame him. There's not a whole lot to dial up when your offensive line can't block anybody.
Right, absolutely. But if they can do what we just outlined, if I see that they're doing that, they're getting the ball out, they're doing the RPOs, they're going a little tempo, then the advantage is to Notre Dame here. Yes. But I haven't seen
those are the things that you can do. Like I said, there's not a lot you can do with an offensive line that sucks.
Right.
We've laid out what those few things are that you can do.
Absolutely.
And they've just stubbornly
not done it. My confidence level is low that they're going to do it, so I have to give the advantage to Virginia Tech here.
Because the advantage is based on what we've seen.
Right. You
and
have
what
to do
we've
that
seen
way.
so far is that Virginia Tech's been a better pass defense in there. Because if you look at the number, you say, well, Notre Dame ranks higher in yards per game. Yeah, but look at that next number. That one right there. That's because Notre Dame's throwing the ball a ton.
Right.
And when you throw the ball a ton, you're going to get your yards. I mean, that's just a fact. When you throw the ball as much as Notre Dame's thrown the ball this year, they threw the ball 46 times on Saturday. They haven't completed over 57% of their passes since the Toledo game. When they were under 50 against Purdue, and they were at 50 against Cincinnati, and they were 21-37 against Wisconsin, right? And then the other part of this too is the receivers are going to have to play to their game this week. They're going to have to no stupid drops. Give me some kind of press release. You know what I mean? You can come over to my house for 20 minutes on Wednesday after practice, and in my backyard, I can teach you how to press release in 20 minutes.
Exactly.
It ain't hard. It just has to be something you work on, So we'll see. I'm kidding about that. Notre Dame players aren't coming over to my house on Wednesday after practice.
I mean, I'll go pick them up.
Yeah. Yeah, because they live so far away. So advantage Virginia Tech in this one. But if they can protect the quarterback, that's where Notre Dame will get the advantage.